Hey everybody, it's Jason from the Texas Gun Vault, and once again, it is Sunday, and that means it's time for the Texas Gun Vault Poll Question of the Week, a weekly vlog that I put out where I ask you as my viewers and subscribers about something that deals with guns, gun culture, current events, politics, the news, or maybe something fun like EDC that I want to get your thoughts and opinions on. Now, this is an episode that I never want to make. But unfortunately, there is evil in this world, unspeakable evil, an evil that will not be stopped. It will always be with us as long as humanity exists. But we have to ask ourselves the important questions. What can we do, if anything? So, with that said, let's dive right into this week's question. This past week, with the unspeakable evil that transpired in Uvalde, Texas, I think it is important that we have a rational discussion on what can or should be done to prevent events like this from happening in the future. I know we all want these senseless acts to stop. So since we are all wanting to stop these from happening, what things, if any, can be done? Are there solutions? What are they, and what do you think will work? I want to hear your thoughts. The first thing that I want to say before starting our discussion is that I think it is important that when we are talking to people that are on the other side of this argument than where we are, it is important to give them the benefit of the doubt, meaning their heart is in the right place. Just like I know that I want these tragedies to stop, and I'll explain why in a very personal way, I know that those people want these tragedies to stop too. So in some ways, we're all on the same team. We don't want things like this to happen. But unfortunately, as I said, evil is going to exist in this world. But can we minimize the impact of that evil? Now, as I just said, I'm going to personalize this one a little bit. Yeah, I am a firearms YouTuber. I'm a Second Amendment advocate. I'm a libertarian. But something that many of you might not know is that I'm actually a school teacher. Well, I'm an independent contractor with a number of different school districts, but I teach inside public and private schools. I have quite a few students. I'm a music teacher. That's what I do for a living. And I teach kids between 6th and 12th grade. I even used to teach college. Yes, I was a college professor for a short period of time. But I understand the education system from the inside. I'm also a father, like many of you are. So I have 4 kids, and I want them to be safe. But when I'm going in and out of these schools and teaching in the schools, I can see all of these issues that could come with things like security. I see students that sometimes I question their home life or their motivations, and I do worry about them. And so I see the system from inside and out. And sometimes I like to think that I have a very unique perspective. And as I mentioned, I'm a firearms YouTuber. So it's not just, oh, I'm a teacher, woe is me, we should do something. I also see it from the perspective of a Second Amendment advocate. So I like to think that when it comes to these issues, I have a pretty good perspective and insight into what's really happening. Now, I could be completely wrong and completely off base here, and I'm willing to learn. But I like to think that I have a pretty good idea from my own personal thoughts of what can be done. But with all of that said, let's see what you guys had to say with this week's results. With over 1,300 votes this week as of me filming this video, we have gun control laws. Guns are the problem, 2%. Mental health solution. Evil and deranged people are the problem, 27%. Law enforcement solution. Enforce gun laws already on the books, 3%. Increase security. Protect our kids with armed security, 45%. And something else, or a combination of the solutions, 23%. And so in many ways, I think I was expecting this result. It kind of turned out the way that I thought it would. Now, I know this is not a scientific poll. After all, I am a firearms content creator, and thus most of the people that are watching my content are probably not going to vote for the first option because they're here because they like guns and the Second Amendment. But the other results I kind of expected when it came to mental health or a combination or armed security. But let's go through each one of these and I'll give you guys my personal thoughts and opinions. First off, we have gun control laws. Guns are the problem. 2%. Now I know that whenever something happens, most people are emotional creatures. We don't want tragedies to happen, and people see these things happening and go, well, the tool that many of these evil scumbags are using are guns. Therefore, if we ban guns or pass gun control, it's going to stop. After all, what's the worst that can happen? And many times the people that are calling for these gun control laws fall into three groups. And I've talked about this in the past on my YouTube channel, and I think it's important to delineate between these groups because they have a different role in the anti-gun push, and some of these people can be turned to our side if they weren't so ignorant, and that's our job, is to educate them. The first type of people are the people that really don't have any stake in the game. They don't own guns. They don't want to own guns. They're a multi-issue voter. This is just one thing on their plate, but their hearts are in the right place. And they think to themselves, I want these events to stop. Although I don't know anything about guns, I follow the mainstream media, things like CNN or MSNBC, and they tell me guns are the problem. These evil assault weapons are the problem. Therefore, I'm going to vote for people that are going to ban these things, or I'm going to contact my representatives and ask them to ban these things. After all, it doesn't affect me, and it's just one of many issues that I care about. I consider these people to be on the lowest level of this anti-gun totem pole, and they're actually the most powerful bloc because they're the most people. And if they vote in a particular way or have a particular public sentiment, well, that can sway politicians higher up the chain. Now we go to the next level, and these are the people that are anti-gun activists, people that might be single-issue voters. They're the polar opposites of people like myself. These might be people that work for anti-gun organizations. And these people, I also believe, have goodness in their heart. They don't want kids to die. They don't want people to be shot. And so from that perspective, they have dedicated their life and their time to stopping these incidences from happening. However, they don't go below the surface. All they see, once again, is the issue of guns. All they see is the tool. They don't want to deal with the more complex issues of things like homelessness, broken homes, drug addiction, and all of the other issues that can lead to somebody using a gun in the commission of a crime or killing people. But these people, I do believe, have the right heart. And so from that perspective, we can at least find some type of common ground. And then finally, there are the people that are at the top. These are the true anti-gun politicians. These people, I do not believe, have good in their heart. They use events like what happened in Buffalo or what happened here in Texas to further an agenda. They don't care about kids. All they care about is punishing their political enemies, and they wish to disarm society because they're the ones with power. And after all, they fear you. If they go too far, who's going to be coming for their heads on a pitchfork? Well, you are. But if you don't have the weapons to fight them and defend yourself, well, they're very secure behind the armed security that they say you shouldn't have. These are the true evil people. And these people at the top use the people at the lower levels as useful idiots to help further their agenda. And this is something that I think that we on the pro-gun side need to do. We need to be better when it comes to our educational outreach. We should be taking people to the range. We should be showing the Second Amendment and gun ownership in a safe and responsible way, and bring in these other people at the lower levels to our side. The more people that we bring into our side that might not be future gun owners, but might be able to be educated about guns, well, they're going to vote our way. They're going to have the public opinion that will go our way. We need to use them like the anti-gunners try to use them. And I think that's an important step in this grand battle. But as when it comes to gun laws, we all know the gun laws are not going to stop this. There are still mass shootings around the world in countries that have banned guns almost outright. But why is that? Well, for a number of reasons. The first is the horse already left the barn. Let's just be very honest. Whether or not you like guns, there are now more guns in the United States than there are people. And guns are durable goods. If you put a gun on the table, it's going to stay there for 100 years. And in 100 years, it's going to work just fine. It doesn't have an expiration date. And so these things are out there. And many people, even people that might be anti-gun, are going to hold these as some type of talismans of power. They're going to hold on to them, even if they think, yeah, everybody else should be disarmed. But if they have a gun, they might tuck that away somewhere in the back of the closet or in a safe somewhere, because they truly understand the importance, the symbol, and the power of a firearm and what it can represent. So guns are not going to go away anytime soon. And this piecemeal approach to gun control, where they ban this or alter this or get a license for this or now you have to do this or register this, it doesn't make the guns go away. They're going to be there. It is impossible to track them down. So that horse left the barn a long time ago, and you can't put it back in. It is done. Guns are here to stay. The other reason that gun control laws, in my opinion, don't work is because of evil people. Evil people bent on doing evil things. We all know that in the inner cities where we have these rampant drug and gang problems, well, most of them are not going to the gun store and buying the guns legally from a federally licensed firearm dealer. We all know that most of them are probably prohibited people anyway because they have felonies or criminal records. And in places like New York City, do you think these people are going to go and get a background check before they hand it to their buddy? Of course not. These laws do absolutely nothing. And that's why it's ineffectual. All these laws do are hurt the common people that live out in rural areas or are just law-abiding gun owners. They put burdens on us, and it doesn't stop the criminals from actually committing the crimes with firearms. So all in all, you guys know how I feel. Gun laws are definitely not the way to go. Then we have mental health solution. Evil and deranged people are the problem. You know, when I talk about being a teacher, I've actually seen students that I have been personally worried about. And they're the kind of students that I go, you know, if I find out in 10 years that they shot up a school, I wouldn't be surprised. Now, what can I do? Well, absolutely nothing. I've raised concerns to other teachers and other faculty members about students that I was worried about. Maybe they have some type of discipline problem, or they've said things that concern me. And many times other teachers feel the same way about these students. And then you ask, well, why can't we do something about it? And the answer almost is the same. There's nothing we can do because they haven't done anything. They haven't broken a law. And as a parent, let me ask you, would you want a school coming in and just saying, hey, your kid said a couple of weird things. We're taking them away to a mental health care facility. You'd be like, whoa, whoa, whoa. This is kidnapping. My kid doesn't do those things. He doesn't have those thoughts. You might even be in denial because they might have actually said those things. And so, because everyone is scared of the litigious nature of our society, well, nothing gets done, and maybe nothing legally can get done. And so these kids that do have problems, ranging anywhere from depression all the way up to violent thoughts, well, it never gets addressed. If they get pulled out of school and talked to by a counselor, the counselor might call the parents and say, hey, your kid's saying this, doing this. And the parents go, that's not my kid, or they completely deny it. I've known kids that had problems and the parents were in complete denial. But what can you do? Unless we're willing to give the government the power and authority to come into your home and take your kids on the word of a school faculty member, well, what can we really do when it comes to mental health at this level? And by this level, I mean most of these atrocities have been committed by people that are 18 or 19 years old and freshly out of high school or are in high school. Yeah, a few of them are by older people, and that can be addressed by mental health at a more adult level. But many of these tragedies, the ones that we're talking about today, are with young people, 18, 19, and they're fresh out of school. And many times they showed the warning signs. People might have even said something about it, but because they hadn't committed a crime beforehand, there was nothing the schools could do. So I do believe A lot of this can be solved with a mental health approach and to identify these people that might do these horrific acts. The problem is, what legal authority can we give the government or the schools to do anything? Because I know I don't want my rights infringed. I know my kids, and I don't want, just because somebody makes a statement at school and says, hey, the Texas Gun Vault's kid said this, whether it's true or not, he gets taken away for a mental health evaluation. This could just be punitive in nature. Well, I don't like him, so I'm going to tell a teacher that he said he's going to go shoot up a school, and then he has to go away for 2 weeks. I can see how this system is abused. I don't have the answers to this, but I want to think that there is an answer somewhere in the malaise of this mental health issue. Then we have law enforcement solution. Enforce gun laws already on the books. I was really surprised that this only got 3%. You know, we have all the issues in the past with things like Operation Fast and Furious, where the government was knowingly breaking the laws and telling FFLs to break the laws, to traffic guns down to Mexico. Many times when it came to other shootings, like the one that happened in Charleston, there was a 3-day hold put on the background check of the shooter, and the FBI didn't do their job in time. They know how long they have. They should focus their resources on that. Then when it comes to straw purchases, we find out that people will buy guns for other people. We all know about this, especially in urban areas where maybe somebody's a prohibited person and they get their girlfriend to go into the gun store and buy the gun for them. Well, these people need to be punished. Many times, the ATF and law enforcement know who this is. They know it's happening, but they don't do anything. What happens when somebody lies on a 4473? Well, they go, well, we're going to come get the gun. No, you should go and talk to them. Now, maybe it was a mistake, but what if a felon does try to buy a gun? Well, let's prosecute those people. This is already in the books. It's already the law. I heard a statistic that from Chicago, all of these references that get made to attorneys general and prosecutors about people that are breaking already existing gun laws, they don't go and enforce them. Well, imagine if we enforced the laws that were already on the books vigorously. I guarantee you, you would see a precipitous drop in the use of illegal firearms. But is more law enforcement the solution? Well, I don't think so, because many times law enforcement abuse their power. We already don't like the ATF and the things that they do in creating regulations. So giving them more power and authority, well, that might not be the way to go in my personal opinion. Then we have increased security. Protect our kids with armed security. And as a teacher, this is the one that I would most likely vote for if I was only going to vote for one of the single issues. I see this all the time. I see security lapses in schools, but most of the schools are not hardened targets anyway. So even if you have a single point of entry, or let's just say you had a metal detector at the front, that's not going to stop these tragedies. Schools are built to be open facilities, and by open I mean they're built with windows and glass doors. I can tell you that at some of the schools that I teach at, that if I really wanted to get into the school and not go through that single point of entry, you just bring a crowbar, you break a window, you break one of those glass doors, and you're in. It's not going to stop anybody. When it comes to school security, one of the things that I think we need to do, and I know for some people it's a very dark place to go in your mind, but you have to think like an evil person. You have to think, if I wanted to create carnage, if I wanted to hurt as many people as possible in a short amount of time, what could I do? And usually when I go to these places, yes, as I said, it's dark. It's really hard to put yourself in that position. But it's important because then you start to realize, oh yeah, they can go in that side door with that crowbar. Oh yeah, if they had a metal detector, well, they're just going to walk in, guns a-blazing from the very beginning. They're just going to shoot the person behind the metal detector and walk right through. The metal detector does absolutely nothing. So many times after these events, I see schools step up security. And a lot of times it's security theater. One of the things we have to do occasionally are lockdown drills. And a lockdown drill simply is you lock the door to the classroom, you turn off the light, and you huddle all the kids in one corner. Well, guess what? These people that are entering the school to do these terrible things, they already know that. So they're like, hey, they're already putting all the fish in the barrel for me. I know they're in the classroom. All I gotta do is break that glass window, open it up, and then I have a killing field in a very small confined area. I can tell you that as a teacher, I have always been concerned for the safety of my students and my fellow faculty members. But I've also wondered, let's say I'm teaching and I really do hear gunshots and I know something is going down. And they go into a lockdown drill. Well, I can tell you, I'm probably not going to do that. I'm probably going to get as many kids as I possibly can out of the building. I'll be like, listen, I don't care what protocol is. If you're in this building and you're in a locked room and confined in a small space, this is dangerous. Get out. We shouldn't have lockdown drills. We should have get the hell out of there drills. After all, if it all becomes chaos and everyone's leaving, well, then nobody can get shot. This is just something that I have seen from being inside the schools. Now, I know a lot of people will say, well, there's a litigious thing about if somebody gets hurt leaving the school, and if it's uncontrolled chaos, it already is uncontrolled chaos. And I think that people should have some type of plan to escape. Run. You don't have to fight, but run. One of the best ways to win a gunfight is not be in a gunfight. If you hear shots being fired, run in the opposite direction. Get out of there and help others get out of there. Don't waste time. Don't hide under your desk. Don't hide in a closet. They're walking around, and trust me, now that we've seen the police response to these shootings, they're going to have plenty of time to open every single door and look in every single closet and look under every single desk. They have time. What are they going to do? Be stopped by somebody throwing a book at them? No, they have a firearm. Get the heck out of there. Now, I know probably some school administrators are upset with me. I know some security specialists are upset with me saying this. But it's true. If I know there's a shooting on the other side of the school, if I get out of there and I get all of my kids out of there and I say, you go run to those woods, stay there, wait till the police get there. And after the scene is cleared, we can be found, we can come back, and it's safer for us. Get out of there. Another thing schools need to do is have more armed security. Now, I know a lot of people tell me, we can't afford that. Man, can we afford a lot of foreign aid to other countries that don't care about the United States? Well, we sure do. We give billions to the United Nations. We just gave billions to Ukraine. Are you telling me that we can't beef up security by hiring 1 or 2 security guards for every single school? I see the waste, fraud, and abuse of taxpayer money in the schools all the time. Every high school here in Texas has to have a multi-$100 million football stadium. I see these schools invest millions in new technology, computers, tablets, laptops that often never get used because they don't want the kids surfing the web during school hours. So they get all these grants from the federal government to buy these things that never get used. All that money could go towards a couple of security guards that are properly trained. And just having that presence on the school campus, people that are always aware, I guarantee you it's going to make somebody going into these places think twice, because they want to go out in a blaze of glory and they want to do the most harm. And if they know the moment they get in there and discharge a firearm, they only have seconds versus minutes, or in the case of Uvalde, maybe even hours, well, they're going to think twice. The last thing to think about is how we secure everything else in the country. For example, I know many politicians found what happened on January 6th to be the greatest tragedy in the history of the United States, with some unarmed people walking through velvet ropes in the Capitol. But after that happened, what did they do? Did they have the idea of, well, we need to post no protesting signs around the Capitol, and we shouldn't have firearms in the Capitol? That's just crazy. We shouldn't have to go to work like that. No, they beefed up security. They put the National Guard around the Capitol, carrying real machine guns and tanks. They did this. They hardened their own security. What about banks? Banks have lots of security. They have cameras. They're behind bulletproof glass. They have safes that lock. They have protocols. But what about schools? Many people just have this utopian idea that schools should be free of all this, that kids should never see guns or armed security. Unfortunately, that's not the world that we live in. Evil people are going to do evil things. They don't even have to breach the security of the school to do harm. Once again, going back to the thoughts of being a bad guy and thinking, what can somebody do to unleash carnage on these beautiful, innocent children? Well, you don't need a semi-automatic rifle. You can go get a standard deer rifle, a bolt-action rifle, and from 200 yards, you could probably pick off a whole bunch on a playground before anybody knows what's going on. And you can still rack up the same body count. Now, as I said, that's an evil thought. It's an evil place to go. But don't fool yourself. These evil people have thought about it. What about getting a truck and driving over a whole bunch of these kids as they're leaving the school? They're all walking down the sidewalk, 20, 30, 40 of them, and you hit them with a big F-250 pickup truck going 50 miles an hour. That's going to unleash more carnage than any type of firearm in a school currently has. There are so many ways of doing these evil acts, and unfortunately we live in a fallen world with evil people. There are things that we can do to try to prevent them, but you're not going to stop them. But the best solution, in my opinion, is to harden the security, to think about this ahead of time. Because when we put all of our kids in the same place, they become a target, and we have to harden those targets, and we have to protect our kids like we protect our money, our politicians, and the President of the United States. And that is trained armed security with guns. And then we have something else, combination of the solutions. Now this got 23%, and I know personally if I would have voted for this, I was going to be thinking about increased security and mental health, the other two that got the most amount of votes. So that's my thoughts on all this and my perspective. I know this is a really long one, but this is a very important topic for us all to discuss. But now, you know how I feel, so let's see what you guys have to say with the top-rated comments of this week. And with the top-rated comment of the week, we have the reindeer, the rabbit, the bat, who said, "Unfortunately, the system tends to play hot potato with mental health patients. I've seen it happen over and over with my own son. They pass him around until he comes back full circle with no help. The same way our vets and the rest of the public get treated. Getting people help instead of ignoring ticking time bombs in our society would be a great start. This isn't to say that we couldn't use serious security at our schools, though. In fact, I think this would be beneficial on a multitude of levels. Violence in schools surrounding the students themselves is out of control, at least in the schools my children attend. I know of schools nearby that are even worse. This leads to after-school gangs that bleed back into school during regular learning hours. Laws won't stop evil people from doing evil things, nor will laws stop criminals from committing crimes. Murder is against the law, yet people do it often and without concern for any laws against it. More restrictions won't help. In our time, with what seems like a rampant epidemic of mental illness and violence in youth culture, I think increasing security in our schools should be our first priority. We have enough security at the crappiest of airports, at government buildings that house organized crime, casinos, and launder money. Even the sketchiest of nightclubs, strip clubs, have Leos working the door. If representatives truly care about our kids, then they should take money from our tax budget to hire at least one well-armed officer for every school in each district. Plenty of unused tax dollars disappear each year, so funding shouldn't be the issue. Allocating resources to our schools should be possible with the current funding we already have in most communities. Instead of requiring officers to obsessively pull us over on minor traffic violations, attempting to make a quota every month, put them and their salaries to some real use in our schools. Sorry for the rant. Keep up the great work. We need more dialogue around this topic if we expect change. Thank you. Well, that was a very long and very well thought out response, and I think I agree with him 100%. I'm very sorry to hear about his son and his mental health issues, and I sure hope that he gets the help that he needs. But it's true, these people say all the time they can't get the mental help that they need. There's no facilities to help these people. And I know some people say, well, it all goes back to Ronald Reagan making sure that the mental health care places were closed down. That's not necessarily the case. I actually think the problem is the litigious nature of our society. Everybody can sue everything at any time. And so nobody actually wants to take any action, because if their action is wrong or causes any harm, even if they never intended it, well, their company or them personally can get sued into oblivion. So it's very easy to say, yeah, you definitely have some type of mental problem, but I'm not going to deal with it. I'm not going to touch you. I'm not going to give you any help because I don't want to be sued. I'm just going to get my little payment for whatever services I provide, the most minimalistic of ways, and you're off to the races again, and you don't have any help and nothing gets solved. I really think that's the problem with the mental health care facilities, not necessarily lack of funding or lack of them. It's just that nobody wants to do anything because nobody wants to get sued. And I also agree that when it comes to the funding issue, we waste so much money already. We don't have to raise tax dollars. We don't have to allocate more funds. Just have somebody go in there and do an audit of where all this money goes in the schools, and I guarantee you will find more than enough to hire armed security. Then we have Michael Hearn, who says, I read through all the options and honestly think of all those things would be considered a problem. I know of a few schools in my area that have signs up saying something to the effect of teachers being armed and trained to protect the students. Quite frankly, I'm glad to know that they have teachers armed just in case something like that happens here. Well, I don't know where Mr. Hearn is from, but I know I used to teach in a district. In fact, they kind of made national news a few years ago in a place called Argyle, Texas. And the Argyle ISD actually passed a resolution allowing trained teachers to carry firearms. And when you go to that school, you see a sign outside that says, our teachers are armed and will protect our students. And it's been years. And all these people say, you can't arm teachers, they're going to be shooting the kids. They get tired of the kids. They're just going to start discharging guns and killing them too. Well, it's never actually happened there. So what can I say? Does it work? Well, I don't know if anybody ever planned on attacking that school, but they got the signs up, and I do know that there were teachers that were armed, but they wouldn't let students or other faculty members know who those people were. So I think that was a really smart idea as well. Then we have Mr. Scott Ursini, who says, there is no one magic answer. I think we will need a combination of the options stated above. And I do agree with that too. Obviously, we've already talked about mental health. That is a huge issue. And then armed security. Some people are going to say we need more law enforcement enforcing the laws already on the books. Instead of doing these undercover sting operations where in some ways they probably incite this violence, they should say, this guy's crazy. He's already talking about doing it. Let's go pick him up. Let's get him on a 24-hour psych evaluation. Instead, they like to play undercover agent and probably in many ways amplify these situations. Then we have Brian Edgett, who says, from my perspective, it is a two-part problem. The schools are too soft a target, and it seems that when a guard is there, they don't actually do anything to stop the threat. And we have all the gun laws, and they are not helping stop this stuff. So if I ask, what good are the laws? I'm going to get in trouble for this, but here goes. We stop making the shooter famous. Just put them in the ground as soon as we can. Not sure the best way to do that. It's time the bad guys don't get all the press releases like they do now. Hey, and I agree with Brian. Don't make these people famous. These people, like the shooter in Buffalo, in his manifesto said, you're going to change your laws because of what I did. He wants you to change the laws. He wants you and the anti-gunners to change the laws. He wants to be the one that goes down in history as the one that did it. And when you do it, you make him famous. I know that we live in a civilized society, but for me, there are just certain crimes and certain evil things that almost in a way need some type of public execution. If these people actually went to trial, and the thing that actually perplexes me is the people that do get arrested instead of taking their own life or being shot, when they go to trial, it's not really that big of a deal. They don't publicly broadcast these trials. And if they get sentenced to death, we don't talk about it. These people need to have the death penalty. Now, I'm not really a big proponent of the death penalty. I don't like the idea of the government having the ability to take someone's life. Honestly, that's kind of scary. But there are some crimes that go beyond any type of reasonable doubt and go, you can never be rehabilitated. And the carnage that you inflicted on so many people is so unspeakable. You must no longer exist. And when it comes to these shootings, I kind of feel like it rises to that occasion. And if we made public spectacles about this and shamed them and executed them, well, these people might go, I don't want to be that one. I don't want to have that happen to me. I can't go out in a blaze of glory if that happens. And so they don't perpetrate these acts. I don't know if that's the solution. And I know maybe that's me talking from an emotional standpoint, because I want these scumbags dead. Anybody that would do this type of horrific act on innocent children, they don't deserve to be above ground. But we have a justice system. We don't have a revenge system. So while I kind of feel that way, maybe that's not the solution. Then finally, we have Brandon Franklin, who says, here's my take on the situation. I picked option 4, but after a few minutes of thinking, I think it should be a combination of options 3 and 4. Yes, schools should have armed protection, but they must be trained to run towards the fight. We don't need a repeat of what happened in Florida a few years back, where the SRO officer runs away. Now, this is where option 3 comes into play. If someone is making posts on Facebook about shooting a school and has a mental health issue, then instead of waiting, they should take action, and they should do that even if they do not have a mental health issue. Big old long run-on sentence, but I totally understand what Brandon is talking about. But as I said earlier, what kind of authority do we really want to give the government to be able to take somebody out of their home, to detain them for some type of mental health evaluation when all they did was say something? I can see where this system could get abused. I don't have the solutions. I think in general, though, the best solution to this is for us to come together as a community, to watch out for each other, to help each other. Not because we have to or there's a government program, but just because we are good people. We should promote strong families. One of the defining factors of many of these people that commit these horrific tragedies is that they come from fatherless households or single parent households, or they're raised by other family members like their grandparents, and they're not actively engaged in their education and their upbringing. Broken homes. We as a society can do better. We need to take care of each other. As a teacher, I always try to make sure that all of my students are in a good state of mind. I try to treat them with respect and kindness, because I don't know if at home they're not getting that. I try to show them and congratulate them when they achieve great things, and I go out of my way to say they're a good person. I make sure that they're having a good day. I say hello. I look at them in the face. I say their name, and I make sure that they know that they matter. And if we just did this to everybody in society, I think we would all be better off for it. The bottom line, we have to be good people. Just be good people. Be good to others, be good to yourself, be good to your family, and many of these problems would resolve. I know that we don't have all the answers today, and I don't have them here in this video, but I think it's worth discussing. And I'm sorry that this was a really long one, and I hope that some of you maybe had your perspectives changed, or maybe some of you learned something or reevaluated what you already thought. So, this is my thoughts and many of yours, and I appreciate you guys participating in this week's poll. As always, if you guys want to participate in next week's poll, please go to the community tab of my YouTube channel. I will also post a link in the description. Hopefully next week we'll have something a little bit more lighthearted and a little bit more fun. But every once in a while, we have to make these very serious videos. So let me know what you think in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching.